Hello, Facebook, YouTube, world. This is Taiwan coming back to you, aka Big Ride, with chapter 12 of my book, New Jack City 2, Son of Nino. You can buy it online on Amazon. It's entitled The City, Son of Nico, and you spell that Neko. I thank you for tuning in, and I hope you've been enjoying the saga. I know I've been enjoying reading it to you. Here we go. Chapter 12. It was a bleak and dreary looking day in New Jack City. One of those days when the sky threatened rain, but the rain never came. One of those days when you could go out and find something to do, but most people were just content to be inside watching TV, sleeping, having sex, or doing whatever else it was they did inside. That is, everyone except the hypes, the junkies, and the fiends. They did not deviate from their usual routine and went about their daily schedules as perfunctorily as trained lab rats. Only a handful of children populated the playground and other areas outside of the Carter's high rise building. Two pairs of old men occupied two tables out front playing endless games of chess while sipping on brown bag beverages. Neither opponent was really concerned about who won the match. The game itself was merely a socializing tool and a way to pass the time. A couple of tables down, Mike, X, TY, and Jim occupied a table conducting business as usual, selling their illegal products. Man, I knew that motherfucker Tutu wasn't going to be out here in the trenches with the rest of us ready to put no work in, Mike stated. What you expect? The nigga thinks he's too rich to get down and dirty. If you ask me, I think he's too prissy, Jim replied. Y'all can get up off my man. He said he'll be here. He probably just has other pressing business elsewhere. The Carters ain't the only place that he's getting money at. And I can't believe that you would even fix your mouth to call somebody else prissy, X said, looking at Jim. You be hobnobbing with the white folks every day. The only reason you even down in the slum with us right now is because your massa told you to come down here and protect the plantation that he makes so much money off of. Hell yeah. And tell me this, what kind of brother gets out here and makes all this money for a cracker to get rich off of? How many black motherfuckers do you know that even do meth? That drug is designed especially for white folks, Mike said, opening his mouth again to co-sign. Jim took a deep breath and looked at them as if they were the most ignorant people that he had ever seen in his life. First of all, I ain't nobody's fucking slave, so you can keep that massa and plantation shit to yourself, he replied, looking at X. Yeah, whatever, nigga, X said, waving his hand and turning his head. And regardless of what any of you motherfuckers may think, all of us are out here making money for the white man, whether you know it or not. The only difference is that I'm able to see and talk with mine while y'all ain't never met the one that you're making the money for. You niggas need to quit fooling yourself and telling each other those lies too. Meth is just for white people, he stated mockingly. Get that bullshit out of here. It is done predominantly more by whites, but that's where the difference is in. Ain't no color barrier on no drugs, no matter what they are. The only difference is that the black folks are a little slow on catching up to this fairly new drug. As soon as more people find out that the high lasts longer than the high that you get from crack or heroin, then it's going to be out here in the black community just as strong as everything else, he predicted. The others looked at him in disgust. And you like that just fine, wouldn't you, Sambo? T.Y. jeered. His comment pissed Jim off to no end. You punk motherfuckers got y'all nerve, don't you? Acting like the drugs that you sell ain't harming the community because some of the profits are lining your pockets. Nigga, please. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I ain't gonna take too many more of them fucking Sambo jokes either. Y'all just finished saying that the drugs I sell are mostly purchased by non-blacks. The ones that you sell are bought primarily by people with the same skin color as your own. So when you really look at it, who's the real Sambo, huh? After his soliloquy, no one was quick to speak. Jim just smiled, having made his point. Yeah, I thought so. And when those fake ass CMB motherfuckers show up, you'll see exactly why Lucky Lou asked me to come out here. You young ass punks talking about putting work in. I'm gonna show you how it's done, he bragged. At that exact moment, Big Tiny's Bronco pulled into the parking lot, followed by Nino's Terrain. Chopper, Roni, DJ, and Black were in the Bronco with Tiny, while Double D, Smoke, Man, and Big Lord were in the terrain with Nino. Main G pulled in by himself almost a full minute later in a royal blue box Chevy Caprice Classic sitting high on 26s. He parked at the end of the parking lot away from Tiny and Nino's vehicles. All of CMB was present and accounted for and armed to the teeth. When Nino exited his vehicle, everyone followed suit, stepping out and slamming doors. The sound of the doors drew attention their way, and when the residents of the Carters saw the man who had just wreaked havoc and terror on the complex a couple of days before, everyone began making moves to get out of their way. Mothers who had been watching their children play from the windows of their apartments began frantically calling out to their children, telling them to come inside. The the chess games and bullshit talking amongst the old timers came to an abrupt halt. Even the smokers knew enough to get away and crawl back under whatever rock it was they crawled out from under. As CMB watched all of this happen, something else caught their eyes, mesmerizing them. A beautiful woman, the color of light caramel. The hair on her head was slicked back into a wet looking ponytail that drew her hazel eyes up into a seductive and enchanting slant in the corners. Her unblemished face was gorgeous and exotic looking, as well as her glossed up, shiny, and begging to be kissed lips. But none of the aforementioned things were any of her best assets. Shorty had a banging body. She stood about 5'7" and was dressed in a flower bikini with cut off blue jean shorts on. The jeans were tight and short and looked like they had been painted on her. They were so small that she was unable to fasten them, so the zipper on them stayed unzipped, advertising the pretty bottom of the bikini and giving everyone a tease of the treasure they held. Her huge and bouncy breasts threatened to spill from the flimsy material that struggled to hold them. Her hips were the shape of an hourglass, and she had one of those asses that was so big you could see it from the front. Her stomach was flat with the cute belly button that most girls wish for, while her big thighs proudly displayed a huge camel toe sitting in the center of a prominent gap between her pretty bow legs. And if that wasn't enough, she was also pigeon-toed in the white classic Reeboks that she wore on her feet. While all of CMB's mouth hung open at the sight of her, they were all in agreement on one thing. Whoever Shorty was that deal. With a smile on her face and a confident switch in her walk, she made her way towards them, walking right up to Nino. She reached up and placed one of her well manicured hands behind his head and pulled him gently forward. As she whispered in his ear, the combination of her smell, her body, and her warm breath on his ear turned him on, making him get an erection. It's a setup. The guys behind you at the picnic table on the end are going to try and kill all of you today. There's one more in a black bubble Chevy in the parking lot. He's a dirty cop who's working with them. You should leave now. When she was done talking to him, she stuck her tongue out and ran it up the length of his ear. The slippery feel of it caused Nino to tingle inside. He pulled away from her and looked into her eyes. She stared back into his without blinking. Though she was smiling, he knew she was serious. He looked at the men out of the corners of his eyes. Through his peripheral vision, he could see them staring back at them. The dirty cop sat behind the wheel of his car, unmoving and staring at them. Nino focused his gaze back on her. Who are they? He asked. Guys that make their money here. They don't like the idea of all of you coming to take what they consider to be theirs, and they plan to do something about it. And how do you know about this? She rolled her eyes and smacked her lips at his question. Everybody knows. That's why everybody else cleared out when y'all came except for them. But I heard them myself yesterday. They were plotting in the stairwell and didn't know that I was up a few floors above them listening. There's one more missing. His name is Tutu and he drives a red two-door Challenger on 26-inch red rims. You can't miss it. Nino looked at her suspiciously. These are people you stay with and grew up around, right? Yeah, so? So why are you doing this? Why are you trying to help me out instead of them? This is your home too. It's simple. I like to be on the winning team, and from where I'm sitting, it looks like you got the ball now. I just want to know, do you have a spot left on the team for me? She asked seductively. Nino got his cell phone out and started dialing. I like you, Shorty. What's your name? Juicy, she said, and she answered, smiling. Yes, you are, Nino agreed as he looked up and down with unbridled lust in his eyes. Yes, you are. Main G answered his phone on the other end. What's up, G-Ball? What I tell you about that shit, Nino warned. Main G laughed. All right. What's up, Nino? There's a guy in a black Chevy in the parking lot. You see him? Mangy looked around until he spotted him. Yeah, I see him. What's up? No matter what happens, I need you to keep an eye on him and be on the lookout for a guy in a red Dodge Challenger with red rims. Now, I want you to listen to me. The guy in that Chevy is a crooked cop, so don't shoot him unless you have to. And if you shoot him, then shoot to kill. You hear me? Oh, no doubt. That's for sure. I told you I'm from the Gardens, Charlie Wally, and if it's one thing we know how to do, it's lay a motherfucker down. It don't matter who it is, police or not. We will situate the motherfucking area, Joe. Real talk. All right, stay sharp. I'm counting on you to watch my back. And you couldn't have picked anybody better to do it. I got you, Nino. Nino hung up the phone and suddenly saw the men at the table get up. You may want to get out of the way, Miss Juicy. Shit is about to get real hot real quick. Juicy looked from the group of men to Nino and his crew with worry in her eyes. Nino, couldn't you just leave, please? She asked him pleadingly. Nino's eyes were already beginning to harden as he prepared himself for what he knew was about to come. He pushed her out of the way as his crew began to assemble around him, pulling out their individual guns and getting ready to engage their adversaries. I can't, Juicy. This shit ends today, right here and right now. When Nino turned around, T.Y., Mike, X, and Jim stood side by side, staring them down, trying to intimidate them. CMB stood on both sides of Nino, returning their hateful looks. Both sides were about 40 to 50 feet away from each other, and fear and adrenaline was running high on each side. But there was also another element present as well, pride. And because of that fact, neither side was willing to back down. This had been the case since the beginning of time. It looks like we got ourselves a standoff, huh? T.Y. said aloud. Nino nodded his head as he looked at their various guns. T.Y. with a Desert Eagle, Mike, and X with 9mm, and Jim with a 357 SIG. Yeah, it looks like we do, Nino answered back. Now the question is, what are we going to do about it? That's up to you. You can always turn around and go back to where you came from. We could forget that any of this ever happened. Nino shook his head slowly. Nah, that's not going to happen. Nino could see that Mike visibly struggling to swallow. The others looked uncomfortable as well. They were, after all, outmanned and outgunned. When T.Y. spoke, his voice was almost pleading. This is our bread and butter, Nino. We can't just hand it over to you. Nino shrugged. That's cool. We'll just take it, he said, before he raised his gun and fired. The bullet hit T.Y. in the shoulder, laying him out on his back. Guns on both sides began to explode as T.Y. laid low on his belly and tried to crawl towards safety. As everyone looked for somewhere to provide cover for them, X noticed Mike hightailing it away and making a run for it. Mike, you coward motherfucker, he yelled and took a couple of shots at his retreating back. While he was busy shooting at Mike, Black ran up on him and gave him a few shots to his back as well as one to his head, opening him up and letting everyone see what was on his mind. As Black was finishing X off, Jim had him in his sights. Just as he was about to squeeze the trigger, a couple of shots hit the tree that he was hiding behind. When he turned his head to see where the shots had come from, he saw Man running and gunning for him. Jim pointed his gun at him and took careful aim. Man never had a chance. The first bullet caught him dead center in the middle of his neck, severing his spinal cord. He was paralyzed and yet still on his feet as the next couple of bullets tore through the flesh on his chest and his rib cage. In his mission to annihilate Man, Jim had allowed Chopper to creep up behind him with the Remington. The tremendous blast from the shotgun in his back made quick and short work of him. You could squeeze a small watermelon through the large cavity that used to be his chest. T.Y. was still laying on his back, gasping for air. His hand clutched at the gaping wound in his shoulder that was still spouting blood. The hand on the same side of the shoulder where he was shot at uselessly held a chrome Desert Eagle that hadn't even spit once. Big Lord walked up and placed a heavy foot on his hand, steadily applying more and more pressure until he cried out in pain. Smoke reached down and plucked the large handgun out of his hand. You won't be needing that anymore, he said as Nino walked up on him with his 44 dangling in his hand. You killed a member of my crew, he stated. I didn't kill nobody, he whined. You shot me. You fucking right I did. You see them? That's CMB. They're my crew. What they do, I do. Now you're with them. You see what they did? He said, pointing over to Man's dead body. You did that because you were with them. That's your crew. They ain't my crew. I'm my own motherfucking man. I stand alone. That motherfucking Mike ran off and left us. And that's all right. We're gonna get his ass too. So what you gonna do, Nino, huh? You can have the Carters. Fuck this place. I'll go somewhere else and get money. Nino acted like he was considering it for a moment and then shook his head. Nah. T.Y.'s eyes widened in fright. Man, you already killed everybody else. You gonna kill me too? Nino shrugged. If I didn't, then I wouldn't be my brother's keeper now, would I? He asked and raised his gun and fired. Only half of his face remained, leaving him looking like a bloody version of the Phantom of the Opera. Officer Nichols had watched the whole scene play out from his car. He was a seasoned soldier of war who knew when to fight and when to run. And right now, every fiber of his being was telling him to get going now. Nichols started his car up and pulled out as inconspicuously as possible. He was in such a hurry to get away that he never realized the blue Chevy that was tailing him. Back on the battlefield, Black was down on the ground with Man's head on his lap, crying softly to himself. Nino walked over to where he was and squatted down to his eye level. He died trying to save me, Black said, holding his head. I know, Black, and he did save you, but we gotta go now. Black shook his head defiantly. No, hell no. I ain't leaving my boy out here like a dog in the street. He's one of the moles, and I ain't leaving him like this. Black, he was one of CMB too. Do you think that I want to leave him like that? I don't have a choice. The police are going to be here any minute, and look around you. People are dead and they're going to want answers. You think they're not going to try and pin this on you? Do you think that's what he saved your life for? For you to end up spending the rest of it behind bars? Hell no. He would want you to ball till you fall, or not at all. Black sat for a moment, and when he finally spoke, he looked Nino directly in the eyes. We got to send him off like a king. For sure, Black. He'll have the biggest and best funeral you've ever seen, Nino agreed. And I want to be the one to tell his mama. Okay, Black, but we got to go. Now. Black took his hand and gently closed Man's eyes. Good night, Star, he said, and gingerly laid his head on the ground before he stood up. All right, let's go. Everyone took off for the parking lot, but Nino stopped when he heard his name being called. When he turned around, Juicy was standing off to the side, looking lost as well as anxious. Can I come with you, please? Nino looked her up and down and had already made his decision before he finished his inspection. Yeah, come on. Juicy walked swiftly to him, and she and Nino took off towards his truck. All of CMB piled into both vehicles and made a speedy retreat away from the Carters, leaving a bloody assortment of bodies sprawled out on its battlefield. Meanwhile, Main G continued to tell Officer Nichols as he drove through the busy streets of New Jack City, careful to stay at least 3 or 4 cars behind him to avoid detection. When he saw him pull off into a do-it-yourself car wash, he pulled the Chevy over and parked. Main G took the MP5 and wrapped it in a large sweatshirt before getting out of the car. He walked past the garage door just as it was closing, but not before he was able to catch a glimpse of a red 2-door Dodge Challenger parked in front of Nichols' car. He immediately got out his phone and called Nino. Hey, Joe, I was following the punk-ass cop and he led me to this motherfucking car wash. And guess who else is here? Who? Nino asked as he opened the door to one of the rooms that he had rented for his crew. Juicy entered and went straight to the bathroom. The dude you were telling me to keep an eye out for in the red Dodge. Nino sat down and flamed up a blunt. Oh, yeah? I wouldn't lie to you, Charlie Parker. Now tell me what you want me to do. Nino thought for a moment, allowing the smoke from the weed to cloud his brain. By the time he was making his mind up, Juicy was coming back out of the bathroom. To his surprise, a pleasant one at that, she was totally naked. Nino was lost in her vision of beauty from the top of her gorgeous head to the bottom of her pretty French pedicure feet. Her voluptuous breasts stood at pert attention without the support of a brassiere. The dark round nipples on them resembled chocolate-covered pepperoni slices, promising to be good to the very last drop. The neatly trimmed bush between her legs was such a pretty sight to Nino that he almost wanted to walk over to her, bend down and kiss it. Almost. She stood leaning to the side with one hand on her magnificent hip and a look that told him that she knew that she was the shit. The smirk on her face said, yeah, You know you want this, don't you? And he definitely did. The sound of Main G's voice broke through his sexually motivated dream. Nino, Nino, yeah, what's up, Main G? He answered, shaking the cobwebs from his head. While he was still trying to gather himself, Juicy pranced his way, making sure that she made her ass jiggle enticingly with each step she took. When she got to Nino, she dropped down to her knees in front of him and began to unfasten his pants. I said, what do you want me to do? Damn, man, what's wrong with you? What you doing? Playing with yourself or something? He asked, frustrated. Or something. What? Nothing. Kill him, Nino told him as she took his rock hard tool out of his pants. Both of them? I thought you said not to kill the cop unless I had to. No, not the cop. The other guy. I want to talk to the cop. He's already dirty, so we may be able to use him. Right. Okay, Mangy said, nodding his head and smiling. Call me when it's done, Nino said and hung up. Just as he did so, Juicy looked up at him, opened her mouth wide, and took him in her mouth. Nino almost yelled out in ecstatic joy as the underside of his dick felt the smooth and slippery texture of her tongue in her warm mouth. Juicy wasted no time putting her skills to work. The suction of her jaws as she feasted on his enlarged penis caused a vacuum effect and was making it increasingly more difficult for him not to come every second he was being orally entertained. Nino raised up out of the chair in an effort to make his midsection considerably easier to meet her mouth as she continuously went to town on his meat. The slurping sound she was making as she devoured the whole length of him only added to the overall effect. She plopped his dick out of her mouth and bent her head lower to suck on his balls. Nino scooted toward the edge of his seat and opened his legs a little wider for easier access. When she came up for air and put his dick back into her wet and warm mouth, he was happy. But when she took his hand and placed it on her ponytail, he thought he was going to fall in love. Who was this bitch and where did she come from? Right when he thought it couldn't get any better, that's exactly when it did. Juicy's neck movements became more pronounced as her head started going up and down faster and faster. Beads of perspiration broke out on her nose and forehead as she put in serious work to satisfy him. As hard as Nino tried to fight it, he soon found that he was fighting a losing battle. Inside his blue and white Jordans, his toes began to curl. Oh shit, I'm about to nut, he yelled, the tension steadily building. To his relief, she didn't slow down at all. Juicy maintained her pace, and before he knew it, the semen that had been building up in the bottom of his balls came bursting forth. Ah, shit, he yelled as he flooded the back of her throat with the hot, thick liquid that gushed from him. The nut seemed to be an endless one. When it was over, he felt totally and completely drained, and still she continued to suck on him, relieving him of any secretions that may have tried to seep out later. Regrettably, Nino had to stop her since now the head of his member was extremely sensitive. Juicy was disappointed to be separated from her new pacifier, and she showed it by sticking her bottom lip out in a stubborn pout. Be cool, baby. I'm waiting on the call, and then I promise you that I'm going to beat that pussy up. Juicy perked up when she heard that. You better. If you thought my head game was good, then wait until you get a shot of this good. You're going to be turned out, she stated with confidence. Nino laughed at her prediction. All right, here, he said, passing the blunt as he prepared to roll another one. You're going to need this. I already busted my first one, so I'm good for at least an hour on the second one. Okay, we'll see, she said, taking a hit. Yeah, we will, won't we? He said with a devious smile. Nino had plans for that ass, and by his calculations, those plans would take up most of the day. Mangy scoped his surroundings and was satisfied that there were no surveillance cameras on or around the building, as well as no potential witnesses. As inconspicuously as he could possibly be, he slid up in the car wash area. Each bay was separated by a long concrete wall that was the length of two vehicles. Tutu was busy going about the task of washing his while Nichols stood beside him talking. With the constant drone of the machines inside, Nichols had to talk a little louder than normal to be heard. Mangy stood at the bill changer at the end of the wall, straining to hear what was being said. So who's all dead? Tutu asked. Nichols gave him an incredulous look and flailed his arms about, gesturing wildly in frustration. Haven't you been listening to anything I said? Everybody's dead. Jim, Ty, X, everybody. Mike is the only one still alive, and that's because he took off running. Tutu just shook his head at the news. Bitch ass nigga. And what about you? What did you do? He asked, eyeing him warily. Me? What the fuck could I do? Have you forgotten who the hell I am? I can't be out there in broad daylight in the middle of a goddamn shootout. What the hell's wrong with you? I was taking enough of a chance by just being there. If you were out there with them, then you could have helped them to even the odds a little. At least those CM bitches wouldn't have gotten away scot free again. Hell, they didn't get away scot free. Jim killed one, but he didn't live long enough to celebrate. Another one of them snuck up behind him and blew his back out with a gauge. He was dead before he hit the ground. Tutu stopped spraying his car and looked down thoughtfully, going over everything that he heard. That's okay. They got the best of us again today, but the worst thing that they could have done was let me live. I'll go out here and recruit a whole new squad. If they got 10, then we'll get 20. I'm tired of playing with these motherfuckers. And we tired of playing with your bitch ass, Main G retorted, advancing upon them with the MP5 held in both of his hands. Both men were startled by his sudden appearance. Officer Nichols instinctively went for his piece, but Main G was ready for him. Freeze, motherfucker. And when I say freeze, I mean you better be ice motherfucking cold. You hear me? Nichols saw that he was in a no-win situation, so he slowly put his hands above his head. Okay, all right, just don't shoot. I'm a cop, he informed them calmly. You ain't no cop, nigga. You something like one, though. But I can help you. I'm worth more to you alive than dead. You think I don't know that? That's the only reason that your black ass is still breathing, he turned to Tutu. Now you, on the other hand, Tutu stared at him fearlessly, the sprayer still in his hand and dripping water on the ground. What about me? He asked bravely. Main G shrugged his shoulders. Nothing, he said, and shot him in the head. Officer Nichols' dark skin visibly blanched when he saw Tutu murdered in front of him. He began to shake in fear with his hands still up in the air. Please, please don't kill me, he begged. Main G pulled his phone out and pressed redial on it while keeping one eye on him. Shut your scary ass up. Somebody want to talk to you, he said as Nino picked up. What's up, boss man? I got Officer Friendly ass here. And what about the other one? His chapter is closed. He's through booking. It's over for the kid. Take your pick. Nino just smiled. You a cold piece, G-Ball. I told you, no one does it better. Let me holler at our newest asset. Here you go, Chief, he said, tossing him the phone. Hello? What's your name? Nichols. Officer Randy Nichols. Well, Officer Randy Nichols, I take it you already know who I am? Yeah, you're Nino Brown. That's right, Randy Nichols. I understand that you were working with all of the deceased. Is that right? Nichols swallowed hard. Yeah, something like that. Motherfucker, don't lie to me. I ain't the police. You are. He hollered into the phone, making Nichols jump. Now I asked you a question. Were you working with the deceased? Yeah, I was working with him. That's more like it. Now, would you like a job? Doing what? He asked, beginning to relax. I need you to be my eyes and ears in the police department. I want to know what's going on at all times. You give me a heads up and keep them off my ass, and I'll make it worth your while. Nichols' interest was totally piqued now. How worth it? How much were they paying you? $1,500 a week, he lied. I know you're lying, but it doesn't matter. I'll give you $2,000 a week plus bonuses for extra juicy tips. How does that sound to you? For the first time that day, Nichols smiled. It sounds good. It sounds damn good. All right, Nichols, but I'm going to need you to earn that money. Don't disappoint me. You see how we get down, he threatened, but Nichols was already well past the point of being scared. Oh, you won't be disappointed. I promise you that. Nichols was already counting the money he would be making and spending it in his head. That's good to hear. Make sure you leave your number with my man there, and I'll be in touch with you. Sure thing. And thanks, Nino. Don't mention it. Nino hung up the phone and turned around to see Juicy laying in bed, spread eagle, playing with her pussy and licking her lips at her. Now, where were we? He said, stepping out of his pants and walking towards her. That's the end of chapter 12, New Jack City 2, Son of Nino. You can purchase the book online on Amazon, and the book is entitled "The City, Son of Nico." You spell that Neko. I appreciate you tuning in every day. Please spread the word. Let everybody know, that New Jack City 2 Son of Nino is out there. Uh, Tune in for the next chapter. Thank you for listening, and you have a great day. Peace out.